know, what you're trying to do, and I agree. I don't think we should, not help, but I guess when you see the number of people who don't have jobs, and you have a college educated husband, I mean, how are you supposed to tell your children? I just, when you see the hurting and you see the homeless, it's just, I guess, hard for Americans in the middle class to grasp why we do give as much as we do.
Yeah. I understand sort of the source of frustration, but I think it's important to remember, Jennifer, like I said, we spend 1% of our total budget on foreign aid. So, some folks think it's like 25%. I mean, it's a very small portion. And most of the foreign aid we provide is to countries that are also helping us with our national security. And so oftentimes when we're providing that aid for a country, we may be saving a larger amount in terms of what we would have to deal with if they weren't cooperating with us. So that's part of the reason why I always emphasize our defense budget and our foreign aid budget should be seen as an overall package, an overall strategy to keep America safe. Because what we don't want to do is have a situation where certain countries completely collapse, and then the next thing you know, we're having to send our guys in there at huge potential risk and huge cost to taxpayers instead. But it also means when we're providing aid that these countries need to help themselves. And instead of just giving charity, one of the things we're trying to do is to help them develop, so hopefully at some point they become consumers of our goods and services, and we can sell stuff into those countries, and it helps grow the overall pie and helps create a situation where American businesses are doing better as well.
Let's go back to you two, Mr. President, on an issue that's been on the front page of the New York Times today. The question comes from Evan in Brooklyn, New York. Let's watch.
Mr. President, since you took office, you ordered more drone attacks in your first year than your predecessor did in his entire term. These drone attacks caused a lot of civilian casualties. I'm curious to know how you feel they help the nation and whether you think they're worth it.
Well, Steve, I can't hear you right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go.
I wanted to explain the reference to the New York Times just because the story today focused on the use of drones in Iraq, actually. So.
Well, you know, that story, I think, was a little overwritten. The truth of the matter is we're not engaging in a bunch of drone attacks inside of Iraq. There's some surveillance to make sure that our embassy compound is protected. As a general proposition, the question that was posed, I want to make sure that people understand actually drones have not caused a huge number of civilian casualties. For the most part, they have been very precise, precision strikes against Al-Qaeda and their affiliates. And we are very careful in terms of how it's been applied. So I think that there's this perception somehow that we're just sending in a whole bunch of strikes willy-nilly. This is a targeted, focused effort at people who are on a list of active terrorists who are trying to go in and harm Americans, hit American facilities, American bases, and so on. It is important for everybody to understand that this thing is kept on a very tight leash. It's not a bunch of folks in a room somewhere just making decisions. And it is also part and parcel of our overall authority when it comes to battling Al-Qaeda. It is not something that's being used beyond that.
Mr. President, do you think that possibly these drone strikes, do they send the message that the U.S. is interfering in other countries' affairs? Because I feel like, regardless of how much we do, people in other countries might perceive that we're interfering, and that might not be good for us. Is there a way that we're combating that?
Well, I think that we have to be judicious in how we use drones, but understand that probably our ability to respect the sovereignty of other countries and to limit our incursions into somebody else's territory is enhanced by the fact that we are able to pinpoint strike an Al-Qaeda operative in a place where the capacities of that military in that country may not be able to get them. So obviously a lot of these strikes have been in the Fatah and going after Al-Qaeda suspects who are up in very tough terrain along the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. For us to be able to get them in another way would involve probably a lot more intrusive military actions than the one that we're already engaging in. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be careful about how we proceed on this. Obviously, I'm looking forward to a time where Al-Qaeda is no longer an operative network, and we can refocus a lot of our assets and attention on other issues. But this is something that we're still having to deal with. There are still active plots that are directed against the United States, and I think we are on the offense now. Al-Qaeda's been really weakened, but we've still got a little more work to do, and we've got to make sure that we're using all our capacities in order to deal with it.
Mr. President, I want to change gears for a second and move on to the topic of education. And I think there's no better place to start this conversation than with Adam and his classmates out in Fremont. Adam, let's hear from you.
Hi, Mr. President. Once again, this is an honor to be a part of this, so thank you for taking time out. But my question is, at a time when Americans are struggling to pay for daily necessities, you've continued to push higher education for all Americans, but what is your plan to help students pay off all their student loans?
Well, first of all, when I say a college education, I think what people should be clear about is I'm really talking about higher education, education beyond high school. It doesn't mean that everybody needs a 4-year college education. It may be that somebody has incredible aptitude with computer graphics and they want to be a computer designer, and they may just need a couple of years at a community college to get those skills before they're immediately on the job. It may be somebody has mechanical aptitude and they want to become a skilled tool maker, and they can get a training program in a year or two that allows them to work with high-tech equipment in a factory. But the point is that it's very hard for somebody who just has a high school education to be able to get a well-paying job that allows you to support a family. And I want to encourage everybody to have access to that higher education, whether it's at a community college or a 4-year college or beyond. Now, what we've tried to do is to make college more affordable without putting more of a burden on taxpayers. One of the biggest things we did last year was to sign into law a bill that took away $60 billion in subsidies that were going to banks because they were the middleman on the student loan program. We said, let's give the loans directly to students. We can take those billions of dollars and we can provide more assistance to students directly. And that's helped a lot of students. We've also got coming up a concern of mine. If Congress doesn't act, then the interest rates on student loans are going to go up this summer. And so I've urged Congress at the State of the Union to do something about that right away, as well as extend existing tax credits that help families. But the final thing that I've been trying to encourage is for colleges and universities to think more about how to make higher education affordable. Some of this is not the faults of colleges and universities. When it comes to state colleges and universities, they've been getting less support from the states. And so I urge state legislatures to do their job and prioritize higher education more in their budgets. But every college and university can also think about, are there additional ways that they can hold down costs? And what we're going to start doing is incentivizing, providing additional dollars to those schools that have come up with creative ways to keep costs down. Some schools, for example, are saying you can get a degree in 3 years. Well, that saves you a year's worth of tuition, but you get the same skills base that allows you to go out there and work. There may be better ways to use technology. I mean, you look at what we're doing today. This is something where potentially a lot of folks can take classes without ever actually being in a classroom and having all the costs of room and board. So there may be ways that we can reduce costs. I want to encourage those, but I want all of you guys to understand you can't stop at high school. First of all, you got to graduate, and then you guys are going to have to do some more stuff because we're going to need you.
Adam, what did you think of?
Well, I would just like to know, what advice would you give to a person like me that does come from a middle-class family, and we would struggle to make ends meet and possibly not being able to find a job after receiving this higher education. What advice would you have as far as wanting to still pursue a higher education with the fear of not being able to pay off those student loans?
Well, first of all, you're going to be able to afford college. You will probably take on some debt. Michelle and I took on debt when we graduated from college and law school. We were able to pay it off. It is important, though, and I wish that it wasn't the case, where you could just go to college and have fun for 4 years and then after that kind of make up your mind what you want to do. I think young people probably have a little more responsibility now to think ahead, to make sure that when you make that investment, it's actually in pursuing a career where you can have some confidence that you're going to be able to find a job down the road. You know, I think that sometimes young people go into school and it's 4 years of having fun, and then sort of their senior year they start thinking, oh, you know, I better start thinking about what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. You know, college is a big enough investment now where you've got to kind of think ahead, and you know, your counselors and you know, other adults can potentially help you to identify what are going to be some of the growth areas of the future, so that you make a good investment. Taking the walk or waking up on Saturday morning not shaving and just going to the local Starbucks and not having to worry about it.
Thank you.
Adam, let's hear from you in Fremont.
So my school, Mr. President, is the smallest school in our area, and we're often forgotten about and talked down upon the public eye. What would you say about possibly coming to visit my school and playing a little bit of tennis with me?
Well, I tell you what, I know you can beat me at tennis, so if you wanted to just humiliate me on the court, you know, I'd give you the opportunity if I'm in town. But you may be the smallest school. I don't know how many other schools have the president talking to their student body, though. So I think you've got a little claim to fame now. You can go ahead and thump your chest out there after we sign off.
All right, thank you, Mr. President.
You bet.
Christine, let's hear from you.
Mr. President, I hear that you and the First Lady, just like my husband and I, are celebrating your 20th wedding anniversary sometime
This year.
this year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I am just wondering if you can talk about what you're doing to celebrate, or what you intend to do, or if have you already had the anniversary?
No, you know, the anniversaries, our anniversary is on October 3rd.
Okay.
Sadly, it's a month before the election. So I don't know. I don't know how romantic a weekend we're actually going to get. We may have to defer the full celebration until later in November. But
That's understandable.
you know, I tell you what. Without being corny, I'm sure your husband feels the same way. You know, the fact that you guys put up with us for 20 years. Is pretty remarkable, and I'm grateful for it every day.
I hope my husband's watching right now.
I'm on 17.
Mr. President, if it's all right with you, may I just introduce you to my children who
Yeah,
are
let me see
sitting
'em.
just off camera? Come on over, guys. Just put your faces right over here. Quickly. Just come on over.
Hey guys,
Let Nate in too.
Hey.
Say hi.
how's it going?
What do you say?
You doing all right?
I think they're speechless.
Make sure to study hard in school and do what your mom tells you.
Study hard in school and do what I tell you, is what he said. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, Mr. President. Well, we want to thank you again on behalf of the 250,000 people on YouTube and all of us here in the Hangout, of course. We really appreciate you taking the time for us, and we look forward to seeing you again on Google Plus real soon.
Steve, this was great. I really enjoyed it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mr.
Jennifer,
President.
remember to send me that information.
I sure will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
I wrote a book.
Thanks. Send me a copy.
Okay.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.